Hi, I'm Chef Gail Sokol and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're making something that would be great for fall, something for a picnic. It's super easy and can be used with many fruits. It's a patchwork apple cake. And you'll know as we go through this video why it's called patchwork. Because the dough is a little, well, it's patchy. But it's very, very easy to make, and it's scrumptious. You get this like cake on the bottom, and we're going to bake it in a 9 by 13 inch pan that I have here that we will use later. And then there's a big layer of apples, and spices, and then another layer of the dough, and you bake it, and that's it. And when you cut it, you've got that beautiful cakiness, apples, and then more cakiness on the top. Super easy. We're going to make the dough in a food processor. And it does have to chill. So do give yourself some time or even a few days, or you can even make this dough ahead and freeze it. So in the food processor, I have 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, a pinch of salt, and I'm going to put in 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder. So it's not like a pie crust. It's more like a cake because it has that chemical leavener in it. And then we're going to pulse. We're going to pulse. And when I pulse, I like to cover it because sometimes my food processor likes to spew things out. So I'm just going to pulse for a few times just to evenly distribute all my dry ingredients. And then I'm going to put in cold cubed butter. And this is 1 1/2 sticks of cold cube butter that I just took out of the refrigerator. So it almost looks like, hey, is she making a pie crust? Not making a pie crust. Making something real special. You're going to pulse it till you get sort of like little pieces. They don't have to be totally pea-sized like I always say in a flaky pie crust, just small. Break it up, and then you're going to open this up, and you're going to put in 2 eggs and 1/4 cup of milk, and I'm just going to break up those eggs a little bit. All right, I'm going to pour that in there. I have 2 tablespoons of milk that I have on the side in case I feel my dough isn't moist enough. And I always do that because sometimes, you measure your flour and one day you might pack a little bit. You don't mean to, and you may go a little too heavy on it. So I'm going to pulse this a little bit. If I see that and it doesn't have to come together as an actual ball of dough. It will be sticky and it will be a little messy. All right, what dough is not? I'm just going to show you. It still looks a little dry. I'm just going to keep pulsing till I almost get a dough. Let me feel it. If you can gather it together like this, it's pretty good. I don't think I need that 2 tablespoons of milk. But I had it on the side just in case. Now I'm going to take this out of my food processor, and I always put it in a bowl. Always put it in a bowl. Because we're going to have to wrap this, and then we're going to chill it. But I always put it in a bowl first because then I can gather all the ingredients together and make sure that it comes together in a homogeneous ball or dough. All right. So get all the good stuff off. Get everything from the bottom. And if at this point you feel, yeah, it's a little dry, you can also sprinkle in a few drops of your milk. And I'm just going to gather it. You don't want to knead it because we don't want to develop gluten, but we want to just knead it. Although, if you did develop a little gluten, it wouldn't be so terrible because we're giving it a rest. And we're going to allow those gluten strands to rest a little bit. So I'm just going to gather it together. Here I have some plastic wrap that I have laid down on my marble slab so I can get this ready. All right. And then once you feel, and you're going to see little bits of dough still in there, but again, this is our beautiful apple cake, or patchwork apple cake dough, and it is lovely. Trust me on this. You're going to be making this for a long time. This is great to make with kids too. So I'm going to wrap the baby up, and I'm going to give the baby a little bit of a rest. At this point, I'm going to push it all together, and you can put it in the fridge for maybe 2 or 3 hours to get firm, and it's not going to get hard. It's going to get firmer, and that's what you want because you're going to be able to roll it out. and you want to roll it out. Or you can put it in your freezer for 30 minutes to an hour. Some freezers are really cold, so make sure you keep track of it. Or you can just date it, label it, and freeze it for up to a couple of months. All right, I'm putting this in my fridge. See you back here. I'm back. I've chilled my dough for my patchwork apple cake. I took it out of the fridge and put it on the side. And I have sprayed a 9 by 13 inch pan. It doesn't have to be glass. It could be metal as well, with nonstick cooking spray. And I've preheated my oven to 325 Fahrenheit. If I'm acting crazy, it's because I'm very excited about this patchwork apple cake. It smells absolutely delightful in here. I can smell my cinnamon, my allspice, my clove, because now it's time to make the filling. So I have 8 cups of your choice, any type apple, peeled, cored, and thinly sliced. And I mean, I like them thin, really thin. All right, so about 8 cups. If it's a little more, no problem. If it's a little less, no problem. So let me move this down. I'm going to add to this 3/4 of a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/4 of a teaspoon each of allspice and clove. If you don't like cloves with an S, you don't have to add it. If you want to add nutmeg instead, or pumpkin pie spice, or apple pie spice, have at it. If you want to increase or move these around a little bit, that's fine too. So I'm going to add these. Now, because apples are always a little moist, and they always, you know, you don't want all the spices to cling to one apple, right? We have to move them around a little bit. I have zest from 2 lemons. Yum, yum, yum. And zest is very difficult. It does not always like to be distributed. So I was going to mix them with this. Forget it. I'm going to use these tools, my hands, and I'm just going to gently flip over my apples so that everything is coated with zest, with cinnamon, with allspice, with cloves. And you can see that it is getting really nice. They're getting nice and coated. So all of the apples should be speckled with spices. Speckled with spices, right? SWS, we should all be speckled with spices. And this is a spectacular fall cake even for a picnic, a fall picnic. If you're going apple picking, you can make this after, you can make this before. Just yummy. Okay, so there you have it. My filling is ready to go. So I'm going to put it on the side. Quick rinse of my hands. Quick rinse. And I'm going to divide my dough in half. And remember, I told you at the beginning of the video that I was going to explain why it's called patchwork apple cake. Well, here's the explanation. You're going to see it get very patchwork-like, and I will show you. And that's why I like it, because it doesn't matter if you mess up or the dough breaks a little bit, because it will, because it's super tender and super yummy. It's not like a pie crust. It is a cake. Don't get confused and think that it is. It is not. What you do need, though, is a nice floured work surface. I'm going to move my apples over so you can see a little bit better. So don't be skimpy with the flour. Okay, so more flour. And I'm going to cut this dough in half. So we're going to put half, roll it out, and put it on the bottom of the pan. I'm going to use my trusty dough cutter and just eyeball it. All right. And this is where it got its name, patchwork apple cake. So this is the fun part. We're going to roll this in flour. It's very tender, remember. And we're going to take our rolling pin, and we're going to start rolling it out to a rectangle, like a rough rectangle. Make sure it's not sticking. So about the length, about 13 inches long. And we're going to put this on the bottom, and if it goes up the sides, that's fine. If it breaks, don't worry about it. It's a patchwork apple cake. That's the whole point. Don't worry. All right, so I'm even going to put a little more flour on top. All right, it's all good. Whatever happens, it's all good. See how it's stuck a little bit? It just means I need a little more flour. So I've got the length. And now I just need to go a little bit more on width. So I'm just going to gently flip it around. All right. And then we're going to cut this in half. And you're going to see we're going to put half of this in and then patch it with the other half. Easy peasy. Watch. That's why I call it patchwork apple cake. So I'm actually going to cut this in half crosswise. And if you can't lift it up this way, you can use your dough scraper. If it cracks, just cut it in half. Again. Yet again. All right? Patch, patch, patch. That's the name of the game here. Just patch it. It's no big deal. It's all going to bake together. It's going to be gorgeous. All right, we're going to do the same thing with this one. Just patch on the other side, just so they meet. Patch, patch, patch. And then we want the bottom covered. It's all going to bake together. Trust me on this. It's amazing. We're going to put it down. Patch, patch, patch. Rotate. And then we're going to do the same with the top, but we have to fill it first with our yumminess, our apple. All right. Again, the dough is super tender. You can see it's beautiful. It's tender. And just patch, patch, patch. Go up the sides a little bit. Use your fingers. Don't add any more flour here if you can, but if there is flour in here, don't worry about it. The apples will absorb it. And now we are ready for our filling. Oh boy, lots of filling. We're going to put our apples in. Apples. Our spicy apples. Yum, yum. And you're just going to distribute them and push them down a little bit. Just sort of push them down a little bit. Because they're all, and if there's any like poking up like that, put them flat or like more horizontal so they don't pierce the dough. Okay, now we're ready for our other half. Again, more flour. Don't be skimpy with the flour here. Whoop, I got it all over. Don't worry about it. It's flour, flour, flour. All right, we're going to move this over and we're going to put this down. Again, same procedure. Flip this over so you really flour it. Flip it over. Move it around, and you want to get that length first. You just don't want it to stick, so that's why I'm moving it around. So when I get about 13, I'm there. I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to get my width, my 9 inches, maybe a little bit more, so I can join the bottom and the top. You're not going to join the bottom crust with the top crust because it's all going to bake together. Yum. All going to bake together. All right. This is one of the easiest cakes. Yes, it's a little messy, but that's part of the fun of it. See, even I need more flour here. All right. So put a little bit more on top, evenly distribute. You just want to have enough of the dough rolled out. And I've tried this many different ways, and I always like a little bit more dough, so I've always made a little bit more dough. All right. So get your flour, move it around, and get the kids to help you. Get friends to help you. This is yummy, yummy apple cake. All right, so just give it a little something, something on the bottom to move with your bench scraper or an offset spatula or whatever you like to use. Cut it in half crosswise, like I said. Then quarters, remember patchwork, patch, 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 all the way down. And then we're just gonna shush this under, grab it, put it around. Actually, I'm gonna do it over here because it's square on that side. And just sort of, whoop, I see you, apple, trying to escape. Just push it down. All right, oh, it smells so good. It smells so good. And all this will bake together. Trust me on this. It's actually spectacular. With some vanilla ice cream, with some whipped cream for breakfast. So good. in a milkshake with vanilla ice cream, like an apple pie. It's almost like an apple pie, but not with a crust, but with more like a cake. Yum. All right, need to get this going. Okay. Again, patch, patch, patch. That's the name of the game. Patchwork apple cake, folks. Don't worry if it doesn't cover all the apples. Just push them down. Push them down. And I have an egg that I have cracked. You can even use an egg substitute or even egg white if you want, but I like the yolk in it because the yolk will give a little caramelization. Remember, my oven's preheated to 325. I'm just going to egg wash a little. And then I'm going to sprinkle it with sugar. And we're going to bake it for 20 minutes. And then we're going to raise the temperature of the oven. So don't look in the oven for about 20 minutes. And then we're going to raise the temperature of the oven to 350 and leave it in for another 30 minutes. So you are not going to take it out of the oven. You're just going to raise the temperature to 350. All right, leave it in the oven and it will raise up. Just change your oven temperature to 350. All right, sugar, a little granulated sugar. If you want to use turbinado sugar, you can. It's a little bit more, less refined sugar. If you want to skip this part, you can, but I wouldn't. It's really good. All right, it just gives it a little crackly crust, and it will also, sort of caramelize on the outside. Really nice. You don't have to use all of it. I just took enough to sprinkle. I didn't even measure it, maybe 1/4 cup. Oh, yeah. All right, into the oven, 325 for 20 minutes, and then I raise the temperature to 350 for another 30. So my patchwork apple cake is done. I'm going to shut off my oven. And the big reveal. Look how beautiful it is. It's golden brown and the apples are bubbling around the edges and it smells so amazing. So what I'd like to do is let this cool down to warm room temperature, cut it into squares, or you could even scoop it if you wanted to, and serve it with vanilla ice cream, or maybe some ice creams I'm going to be making on some upcoming videos, or whipped cream. I hope you become a subscriber, and please make this patchwork apple cake. You're going to love it. Until next time.